Medieval India, chapter number 11, page number 125. The Bhakti movement. The Bhakti movement, which stressed mystical union of the individual with God, had been at work in India long before the arrival of the Turks. Although the seeds of Bhakti can be found in the Vedas, it was not emphasized during the early period. The idea of the adoration of a personal god seems to have developed with the growing popularity of Buddhism. During the early centuries of the Christian era, under the Mahayana Buddhism, the Buddha began to be worshipped in his gracious Avalokita form. The worship of Vishnu developed more or less at the same time. When many of the holy books, such as the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, were rewritten during the Gupta times, Bhakti was accepted, along with Jan and Karma. One of the recognized roads to salvation. That should be Jnana and Karma as one of the recognized roads to salvation. However, the real development of Bhakti took place in South India between the 7th and the 12th century. As has been noticed earlier, the Shaiva Nayanars and the Vaishnavite Aluvards disregarded the austerities preached by the Jains and the Buddhists and preached personal devotion to God as a means of salvation. They disregarded the rigidities of the caste system and carried their message of love and personal devotion to God to various parts of South India by using the local languages. Although there were many points of contact between South and North India, the transmission of ideas of the Bhakti saints from the South to North India was a slow and long drawn process. Oddly enough, the very reasons which made the Nayanars and Alvars popular in the South limited their appeal outside the area, viz. The fact that they preached and composed in local languages. Sanskrit was still the vehicle of thought in the country. The ideas of the Bhakti were carried to the north by the scholars as well as by saints. Among these, mention may be made of the Maharashtrian saint Namdev, who flourished in the first part of 14th century, and Ramananda, who is placed in the second half of the 14th century and the first quarter of the 15th century. Namdev was a tailor who had taken to banditry before he became a saint. His poetry, which was written in Marathi, breathes a spirit of intense love and devotion to God. Namdev is said to have travelled far and wide and engaged in discussions with Sufi saints in Delhi. Ramananda, who was a follower of Ramanuja, was born at Prayag, Allahabad, and lived there at Banaras. He substituted the worship of Rama in place of Vishnu. What is more, he taught his doctrine of bhakti to all the four varnas and disregarded the ban on people of different castes cooking or eating their meals together. He enrolled disciples from all castes, including the low castes. Thus, his disciples included Ravidas, who was a cobbler by caste, Kabir, who was a weaver, Sena, who was a barber, and Sadhana, who was a butcher. Namdev was equally broad-minded in enrolling his disciples. The seeds scattered by these saints fell on the fertile soil. The Brahmins had lost both in prestige and power following the defeat of the Rajput rulers and the establishment of the Turkish Sultanate. As a result, movements such as the Nath Panthi movement, challenging the caste system and superiority of the Brahmins, had gained great popularity. These coincided with the Islamic ideas of equality and brotherhood, which had been preached by Sufi saints. People were no longer satisfied with the old religion. They wanted a religion which could satisfy both their reason and emotion. It was due to these factors that the Bhakti movement became popular among popular Bhakti movement became a popular movement in North India during the 15th and the 16th centuries. Among those who were most critical of the existing social order and made a strong plea for Hindu Muslim unity, the names of Kabir and Nanak stand out. There is a good deal of uncertainty about the dates and early life of Kabir. Legend has it that he was the son of Brahmin widow who abandoned him after his birth, and that he was brought up in the house of a Muslim weaver. He learned the profession of his adopted father, but while living in Kashi, he became in contact with both the Hindu and Muslim saints. Kabir, who is generally placed in the 15th century, emphasized the unity of God, whom he calls by several names such as Ram, Hari, Govind, Allah, Sain, Sahib, etc. He strongly denounced idol worship, pilgrimages, bathing in holy rivers, or taking part in formal worship, such as namaz. Nor did he consider it necessary to abandon the life of a normal householder for the sake of saintly life. Though familiar with yogic practices, he considered neither asceticism nor book knowledge important for true knowledge. As a modern historian, Dr. Tarachand says, the mission of Kabir was to preach a religion of love which could unite all caste and creed. He rejected those features of Hinduism and Islam which were against the spirit and which were of no importance for the real spiritual welfare of the individual. Kabir strongly denounced the caste system, especially the practice of untouchability, and emphasized the fundamental unity of man. He upheld the fundamental unity of man and was opposed to all kinds of discrimination between human beings, whether on the basis of caste or religion, race, family, or wealth. His sympathies were decidedly with the poor man with whom he identified himself. However, he was not a social reformer, his emphasis being reform of the individual under the guidance of a true guru or teacher. Guru Nanak, from the teachings of Sikh religion, was born in a Khatri household in a village of Talwandi, now called Nanakana, on the bank of river Ravi in 1469. Although married early and trained in Persian to take his father's profession of accountancy, Nanak showed a mystic contemplative bent of mind and preferred the company of saints and sadhus. Sometime later, he had a mystic vision and forsook the world. He composed hymns and sang them to the accompaniment of the rabda, of the rababa, stringed instrument played by his faithful attendant Mardana. It is said that Nanak undertook wide tours all over India and even beyond it, to Sri Lanka in the south and Mecca and Medina in the west. He attracted a large number of people towards him, and his name and fame spread far and wide before his death in 1538. Like Kabir, Nanak laid emphasis on the one God. By repeating whose name and dwelling on it with love and devotion, one could get salvation without distinction of caste, creed, or sect. However, Nanak laid great emphasis on the purity of character and conduct as the first condition of approaching God, and the need of Guru for guidance. Like Kabir, he strongly denounced idol worship, pilgrimages, and other formal observances of the various faiths. He advocated a middle path in which spiritual life could combine with the duties of the householder. Nanak had no intention of founding a new religion. His Catholic approach aimed at bridging distinctions between the Hindus and the Muslims in order to create an atmosphere of peace, goodwill, and mutual give and take. This was also the aim of Kabir. Different opinions have been expressed by scholars about the impact of their ideas on the large mass of Hindus and Muslims. It has been argued that the old forms of religion continued almost unchanged, nor was it possible to effect any major breach in the caste system. Also, in course of time, the ideas of Nanak gave birth to a new creed, Sikhism, and the followers of Kabir shrank into a sect, the Kabir Panthis. The importance of the mission of Kabir and Nanak should, however, be assessed from a broader point of view. They created a climate of opinion which continued to work through the succeeding centuries. It is well known that the religious ideas and policies of Akbar reflected in a remarkable manner and the fundamental teachings of these two great saints. Nor was Akbar alone in pursuing these policies, as we have seen in the earlier chapter. However, it was hardly to be expected that the orthodox elements in the two main religions, Hinduism and Islam, would surrender without a fight. As we shall see, the orthodox elements mustered behind the defense of the old faith, which was redefined to meet the new challenge. The struggle between these two broad trends, one liberal and non-sectarian, the other orthodox and traditional, was at the heart of the intellectual and religious controversies during the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. It is this continuing struggle which shows the impact of the ideas and concepts put forward by Kabir, Nanak, and other of the same way of thinking was by no means insignificant. Thank you everyone for tuning in. In the next part, we'll start with the Vaishnavite movement. All the best for exams. Do look at the playlist that we have created for you in the playlist section of the videos, and do watch the previous chapters as well, and keep supporting us. Thank you everyone for tuning in. All the best for exams.